I want to introduce you Sabina Pellizzoni. She is part of the INFN, so the National Institute for Nuclear Physics, and she's the coordinator for the gender mentoring, and she will be our keynote speaker and one of the two speakers hosting this webinar. So, Sabina, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank Benedetta, Rapp, and all the organizers for the invitation to participate in this webinar. It's a pleasure for me to try to reflect together on the problem of the gender gap in academia research, because first of all, I think that create an inclusive and gender equality in higher education environment, it's not only a problem of social justice, but also a real investment for the future. Because if we give the equal opportunities to everybody, we consent to reach their full potential, and it fosters excellence for everybody. So. If you want to start sharing my presentation. Perfect. This one.
Okay, sorry.
So in my presentation, I will try to provide you some contextual insights from the main indicator and reports that we have in literature to address the gender gap in academia research. And so I give you an international overview, and we start with the Global Gender Gap Report from the World Economic Forum. Each year, the World Economic Forum publishes its annual report, Global Gender Gap Index, which measures the gender gap economic and political participation, health, and educational attainment. And this year, the report covers 146 countries. And as I quote in my presentation, the report said that at the current rate of progress, it will take 131 years to reach full parity. So the first consideration that we need the corrective measure to foster gender equity. Please. Okay. Let's take a brief outlook inside the report. The Global Gender Gap Index classify countries into 8 regions. And the slide, I don't see all the slides. Okay, thank you. So the report categorizes all the world into 8 macro regions. It's the first time that Europe surpasses the parity level in North America. And please, the report analyzes 4 main indicators, 4 pillars: economic participation and opportunity for women, educational attainment, health and survival, and political environment. But these findings of the indices are complemented with several other sub-indices, and also the report monitoring also the impact that some other factors influence the results. For instance, last year, the ongoing pandemic or the climate emergency, or this year, the problem of the conflicts and the large-scale migration. This factor might hinder growth towards gender equality. Please. In this graph, I show the level. This graph shows the level of balance or imbalance for each macro categories, and as you see, they use a color code from azure, that means inequality, to deep blue, that is equality. Interestingly, the indices on education and health are more developed, but we notice there will be that there is a very significant gap still remain for what concerns the political empowerment, scattering in all the 8 macro categories. Please. In this slide, I also give you an overview about the employment losses due to the pandemic, the COVID-19, because the pandemic were significantly more severe for women than for men. At the peak of the pandemic in 2020, men's working hours decreased by 18.8%, and the women 18.1%. But however, since then, women have suffered a significantly greater loss of working hours, globally speaking. And the disproportionately negative labor market for women depends mainly for 2 decisive factors. The first one is the burden of care that nowadays fell disproportionately on women, just to think the fact of the closed schools. But the second one, the report notice, is also the distribution of the service sector. When one of the main job that closed during the pandemic was related to the service sector that are female dominated, as retail, accommodation, and catering. So we noticed the pandemic affected significantly the women. Please. In the last, in the next 2-3 slides, I give you an overview of the several indexes that contribute to the ranking. Here I put the Italian gender gap, and as you see, you could show also move on. You could see all the sub-indexes. Okay. Each macro index have sub-indices, and in the next slide you see the other complementary target that compose the total ranking. So this is each country has a cars like this. So the report analyzes 146 countries. Please. Okay, another relevant report for us, for our statistics, is the Gender Equality Index. Was promoted from the European Institute for Gender Equality, that is an independent observatory of EU, and established to contribute and foster and strengthen the promotion of gender equality, including the integration of the gender issue. This observatory analyze also the impact of EU policies inside the national policies, and also attain for all the problem of the discrimination based on sex and so on, and also is involved to raise awareness about gender equality among EU citizens. Please. Here I give you also an Italian outlook, because looking more closely at each card, so also in G, it's possible to monitor the performance of each member state. We could easily identify and reflect about the improvement or slipping back in gender equality index score for each member state. Similarly to the Global Gender Gap Report, also the Gender Equity Index use several indicators, as you see, power, money, time, and so on. But I would like to point out for you and stress that the gender equality index introduced also the violence index. I think this is meaningful because this index is not used to form the ranking list, but it's relevant because it's the first time that we monitoring and have statistics data about gender violence. And I think it's culturally relevant. We all are aware of the feminicide problems in these days. I don't know, but in Italy, we just have a awful case last week, the feminicide. But in Europe, in this report, the index statistics said that last year we have 720 feminicide all over the Europe. So I think it's really important start to reflect and also start to have data about this phenomenon, even if this index not used for the ranking, but I really appreciate this index. Please. The other very useful report, maybe you already know, is the She Figures. Since its first publication in 2003, She Figures provide comparable pan-European data on gender equality in research and innovation. This report is presented 6 chapters, follow a sort of chronological journey of women from doctoral attainment to the participation in the labor market, in the acquisition of decision-making roles. And the report explored the differences in working conditions between men and women. And please. And we notice in this report that at EU level, women accounted on average for more than 14% of academic staff, but moving up the ladder, the proportion of women in top academic position was only a quarter, 26.2% of a grade A position, the position of as full professor. And women represent less than 25% of the higher education sector. And in 2019, just over 3 of 10 council components and less than a quarter of the council heads were women. Please. Focusing on the STEM disciplines, STEM are science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, we see the European research still show marked underrepresentation of women. We average is 32.8%. But I want to point out that the fact that the annual increase in women researchers is less than a half of the annual number of women PhD students. This means that less than a half of women completing a PhD will become professional researchers. This is really a problem. Gender differences also exist in access to EU funding. For instance, men had 3.9% more chance in accessing research funding than women. And this is really a problem because it creates a sort of vicious circle, because it's evident that more funds means more the possibility to do best researcher and also to have a lot of publication. So we notice in the report there are statistics that notice that women are less publication than men, and this contribute also to build up, as we know, publication contribute to build up the reputation. So also this data is very significantly for us. Please. Okay, as the latest data, I give you the situation of INFN, where I work, the National Institute for Nuclear Physics, and more or less in line with the statistical data, we have a percentage of female of 26.4%, please. And for my study, the next, please. Before.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry, you. I have done some statistical studies for the recent publication I made, and I noticed that in 12 years, the presence of women has increased in INFN by only 2 percentage points. And please, go on. And furthermore, the male-female ratio in career progression is in line, but maybe less than the average I showed you before, because the highest level that for us is dirigente di ricerca, the first level, female percentage is only 17%. So also INFN is in line, but have a problem relating to the gender gap. Please. And the last graph about this context I would like to show you is the UNESCO report, because I think it's really impressive, but because clearly explain that the factors influencing girl and women participation, achievement and progression in career path in STEM depends on multiple and overlapping factors. And this factor interact in complex way and impact as individual, family, institutional, and societal levels. And obviously, the same is mirrored for boys. Please. So, starting from the reports I've shown you, the first thing I want to say is, without data, we know we cannot have policies. So no data, no policies. I think and I believe that it's crucial to start with the statistical evidence to raise awareness of the gender gap, because we notice that there is a not real perception of the problem. We underestimate the effect of the gender gap, and so the statistical data help us to give the right point of view. And I think that we need to beware of believing that the solution is only to increase the numerical presence of women, the so-called fix the women. We talk about this in the next presentation. And also, I'm firmly convinced that the problem is to operate a transformation within our institution and transform the gender processes and practices that create gender inequality. Please. So the starting point is that despite some progresses, because there's some progresses, we notice some progresses, the gender imbalance is still there. And I think that we need to rethink evaluation mechanism within institution, including measure to counter segregation at two levels, horizontal and vertical. Please. Maybe all you know the main obstacle well known in literature, the leaky pipeline and the glass ceiling effect. The leaky pipeline is the more likely for women to leave academic and research career, and the glass ceiling effect, the invisible barriers that prevent women from reaching top position, as I shown before, 20–25%. But in the next slide, I would like to focus your attention on these two other metaphors that, in my opinion, best explain the mechanism behind the gender gap. The labyrinths and the glass door index. Ilenia Picardi, Italian researcher, shift the focus from the glass ceiling effect, analyzing all the mechanism during all the Carrier part that impact and affect the promotion of women in research fields. There are multiple mechanisms that regulate the gender, women's entry, retention, and exit from the academic path. And the Glassdoor index, in analogy to the glass ceiling index, give us a measure of the difficulties for women to access in not only in higher position, the glass ceiling index, but measure the asymmetry in access to tenure position in academia. And the next, please. This is how to work the crystal door in academic careers in Italy. Picardi use this glass door index to measure the gendering processes occurring during recruitment in Italian academia. Because despite the emphasis placed on the new neutral and meritocratic reform named Gelmini reforms, Picardi demonstrated with this study that there exists a new form of gender segregation in Italian universities after the academic reform. The problem is a barrier in the transition from precarious position to a permanent one, because as you see at the starting point, we are in 50% in imbalance, complete imbalance access, but the problem is not at the end of the scissor, the top position, but the first segregation, the greater barrier is in entering in the universities. Please. So another reflection, another context I would like to propose you is related to the problem of biases and prejudice in research innovation. Because we notice that there is an inclination to deny the relevance of gender in at every level, as I show you in the UNESCO report, a social, cultural, economic, and political context. And this called the so-called gender blindness, believing the science is neutral and so is merit, but it's not true. The statistics say that it's not true. And there is an underestimation of the effect that for female researchers or working in male-dominated environments. And moreover, I think that we have a problem with the idea of the scientist, because until now is related to the image of a person, a hero that sacrifices everything for science, quite strange, obviously a man. And this is a model that affects and creates perpetuate the gender gap. And also we have biases also affected the career path, because exists a problem related to CV evaluation that often does not give the right space for stories, does not take into account the break, the parental leaves, and for instance, the difficulties in attending international conference or meeting for young mothers. Please. So we have two kinds of biases, mainly the cognitive and systemic biases. And these biases have a relevant impact at three levels: individual, group level, and institutional level. And at individual level, for the problem that create a negative impact in evaluation and career path, and also it's a threat for meritocracy. But the biases impact also at group level. Here, I'm not talking about harassment, because I think we need a webinar alone to discuss about harassment. But exists also the microaggression, that is the macho attitudes, even with realizing that women often don't realize well, but this microaggression create a hostile environment for women. And also the so-called non-events. As I told before, the fact that women don't participate in a meeting or international meeting, or the fact we all know, are aware about the fact that some senior researcher often present the result of young researcher, or the problem of the not publication, no? The senior researcher published the result of the young researcher. All this fact create the non-event, and non-event will that does mean that the fact that create an obstacle in build up the reputation for a young researcher. And the other problem is the institutional level. That is really important, in my opinion, because gender inequality is systemic and intertwined with organizational cultures and practices. And the organization perpetuates gender inequality through direct or indirect discrimination that affect recruitment, promotion, and remuneration processes. Please. Here I have listed the main cognitive biases that operate in us, more or less unconsciously. The affinity bias, the tendency to favor people similar to ourselves. The attribution bias, the explaining behavior or success or failure based on belonging to certain groups. And confirmation bias, the tendency to see here what confirms our pre-existing expectation. And the conformity bias, the tendency to follow the majority, to conform to their opinion. And the false consensus bias, that is the overestimation of sharing our beliefs, opinion, believing that there are more widespread than the reality is. We know the bubble effect of the social world. And so we overestimate our perception, our feeling. And for instance, some studies, some researchers have shown that, for instance, women have weaker personal ties with the core of academic networks, and which makes them less visible to those who hold the power. And secondly, research show also that the men decision maker often assign the position of responsibilities to other men because of their attraction of those with they share values and behaviors. So the cognitive bias is this kind of biases create maybe they are unconscious biases, but they create a practice named male proximity or gender homophily, that is the preference for someone similar to select oneself similar. So we become aware the cognitive biases impact in the practices in the process in our organization. Please. The other kind of bias is the systemic. And I think the main obstacle to achieve gender equality depend on these biases, these structures inside our organization. Mainly we studied two effects, the gender organization. As I told you, science and merit are not neutral, and this is the gender blindness. And if we continue to the idea that the science is neutral, we continue to perpetuate an androcentric approach and contribute to maintain the gender segregation. And another problem is related to evaluation, like I explained also before, but many studies demonstrate that gender bias in evaluation impact, creating disadvantages for women, respect for men, and this is produces significant inequalities. And another fact is that women very often play service role in our research and academia, and these often these kind of roles are not evaluated in selection processes. So, please. What we figure out that society does not evolve spontaneously towards increasing form of equality, 131 years to reach the parity. And there are cultural and social stereotypes that perpetuate bias and unconscious discrimination. And prejudices and stereotypes which are related to our ways of thinking and our reference culture are consolidated since childhood. If, for instance, I think that we need to promote gender awareness also in kids. And gender creates a role expectation, not only in our society, but also in any organization structure, in all organization structure. And this traditional assigned role creates discrimination and disparity of treatment. What the perspective to counter the gender gap, how to promote gender equality? I think we need to start the rethinking, having a new culture, promoting a new culture of our organizational structure. We need to operate a cultural change, and as I told you before, I think the problem is also to change the narrative, starting with the society, starting with the younger generation, because we need that them become aware of these mechanisms. And in the last two slides, I give you some insight, because I think obviously something is changing, but we need to promote actions, and we need to activate processes. And so here I put some insight, but only to start together to reflect how each of us could be part of this change. And I think that some action could be structural and other could be cultural. And structural is, for instance, multiply the gender observatories, because we need data, we need statistics to demonstrate that the problem exists. And we need to promote the gender equality plan. The CATALISI project is an European funded project, and you know that now European Commission decided that in order to apply and receive funding, it's mandatory for the institution to have gender equality plan, and this is an action that create a move on, foster the gender equality in a lot of institutions. So I think that some mandatory measures are really relevant, important. And for instance, the policies relating to work-life balance, imaging extra funds support for women back from maternity, the idea to give more parental leave for father, and so on. And please. And also, please. The idea of create a new gender and diversity index to measure and evaluate the career, and also provide mandatory training on gender inequality bias for applicants, evaluators, and staff, and also the necessity to monitoring of process and the action. But I would like also to stress the necessity to sharing all the measure with the decision makers, because as explained before, the real transformative process is possible only if we counteract the systemic barriers within the institution. And this means that we must involve the top management in the process, because they must be our allies for change. Even if not, I think we'd not succeed in transform our institution. And the last point is the cultural action. As I told you, we have a problem, a cultural problem, because the cultural change are fundamental, because we have the necessity to be ambitious and create new models, new leadership models. For instance, we need a leadership that could be not that exercise attraction and not use the same more male model about force, arrogance, power. And also we need to rethink the concept of care, and we need to rethink the concept of excellence, because we have a lot of plurality of models. Instead to propose often the scientists that sacrifice everything, we have a lot of researchers that are capable to find a balance with personal and research. So we need to speak a lot about this, and also sharing best practices. And after we hear about some transformative practices that could help to share gender gap. And so I think that is important to involve the younger generation in new expectation of new models. And when I would conclude with this image, because we needed to be aware that to realize what we would realize is in the individual, cultural, and institutional transformation, because the problem is it's not only moving from reality to equality, but I think that we have the opportunity to create a real inclusion, removing systematic barriers, and achieve justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabina, for your presentation, for your overview of all of these statistics, and not only in like physical fields, but like in general. I don't know if any of the attendants has question or doubts or something want to ask to Sabina. You can also write a comment on the chat, and maybe we can have like a few minutes for Q&A later. If not, I think we can move straight to the second part of our webinar. We are perfectly on time. Sabina will be, again, as I said, our first speaker of this second part of the webinar, and she's gonna share with us some best practices for gender and inclusion in higher education. So let me again share the screen so I can present. Sorry. Okay, so I can present the best practices.
I speak too much this morning.
No, don't worry. It was really
sorry to boring you.
No, it was not boring at all. It was really interesting. A bit like a windows on our everyday life, let's say. But it was again really interesting.
Thank you.
So as far as you see the presentation, I hope that it's well.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So as I have a return Maybe later, okay, I have returned. Okay. As I explained in my previous presentation, the aim of this action, this our mentoring program, in line with the most recently approaches, has the ambition to be transformative, because, as I told you, the problem is not only support the career path of young female researchers, but above all, initiate a process to transform the institutional mindset. In fact, we know that there is not only a numerical problem of female representation in research, but there is the necessity to increase consciousness about the influence that the gender stereotypes play as I told you, not only in the daily life, but also in the work, in the research field. Please. So when we started our program, our concern, the question we addressed at the beginning was how can we achieve gender equality in academic research inside INFN, because I show you that we have this problem. And the problem, how could we raise awareness about the persisting gender dimension inside academia? Please. So our aim is, first of all, deconstruct the stereotypes and implicit biases that I explained before to create a generation of women and men, not only women, but also men who are more aware and sensitive to gender issue. And we decided to start our program from the early stage researcher phase, because this is the phase, a critical phase, when career precariousness coincides with the time of life when women are often forced to choose between professional and private life. And so I show you the data. And we know that the leaky pipeline, the main point in which we lose women is this phase of the career. So please. How to overcome all the obstacle and the gender gap in literature, maybe you know, but we have three main paradigms or three main approaches. The first one is, as I told you, fixing the women, no? The idea to increase the participation of women, but also underrepresented group. The other is the fixing the institution, which is oriented to the institution. And the aims is to promote equality in careers through a structural change in the organization of research, through what we call the gendering processes and gender organization, and the main researcher is Joan Acker. Now we don't have time now to go deep inside this paradigm, but it's really interesting the approaches that Joan Acker promote. And the other paradigm is fix the knowledge. That aims to foster excellence in science and technology, integrating the gender question, the gender issue, promoting an intersectional analysis into the research. And this is the so-called gender innovation. The main researchers is London Schimbinger, that produce a lot of publication about these things. So we know that there are some strategies to overcome gender inequalities. The mentoring program now are very, very scattered, and there are several types of mentoring program, and this action obviously can support and trigger transformative processes. Please. A cultural note that the term mentor depends on Homer Odyssey. Mentor was the character to whom Odysseus entrusted his own and son Telemachus before leaving for the Trojan War. And so mentor was that of a trusted advisor in charge of protecting and help the family and Telemachus. And we know the literature gradually shift toward a differentiation of approaches referring to mentoring, please. And we have the classic named instrumental mentoring, who aims to develop careers following the perspective fixing approach. But the limit of the instrumental mentoring is that support individual careers but perpetuate the male models of success. Therefore, in my opinion, there is the problem that don't operate a change in the way of the power reproduce inequity, but maintain the de facto status quo. And counting and acting to improve the presence of women reveals the existence of prejudice, but won't help us to understand, because there are these prejudices, these biases. The other one, the second approach, is developmental mentoring that follow the model of fixing the institution. This mentoring is more centered on mentees and their not only professional needs, in contrast to the fixing the numbers, but there is a reciprocity of the mentor-mentee relationship. There is a process of critical reflection. And please. But what I would point out for you this mentoring, because we use this kind of transformative mentoring for our GMP INFN, because in 2010, Jennifer DeFree proposed a new mentoring model, the bifocal approach. And she emphasizes the need for programs to focus on both women and organization, trying to match, to create a synergy. And this is transformative mentoring approach was the approach we use, because this mentoring has the possibility to have the short-term effect, supporting women's career, but also long-term changes, the fact to transformate the institution. And also the transformative mentoring is capable to remove institutional obstacles that create inequality. And also the focus is not only on the mentee and their career path, but also on the mentors. Please. Here is our INF mentoring program that we call gender mentoring program, because we address we want to stress the gender factor in our mentoring program, and we try to integrate the best of the methodological approach that I showed before in our mentoring. I'm proud because this is the first program in an Italian research institute, and so we start a new novelty approach in a research institute in Italy. And so the gender, as you see in the slide, the idea is that the mentoring is a transformative. We use the bifocal approach, involving mentors and mentee, not only support women, more women in research, but also bringing changing in the structure and processes and gender processes. And moreover, we also are working to realize a network, sharing experience and create a network that support and help to foster the career path. Please. This is our website, and I show you in the next slide some insight about our mentoring. The next, okay. In 2018, we started the first edition within the INFN National Training Plan. It was a pilot project, but now our management decided to that mentoring program became a permanent action inside our institution. And so the profiles, as you see, mentee are young INFN researchers and technologists who are not staff or recently recruited. And instead, mentors were women physicists at senior position or at the top level position of career, or also university associates INFN. Please, we involved 17 couples, and these were our goals. For mentees, improve the ability to identify, face, overcome obstacles found in the early stage of the career path through discussion with mentors, but also with this peer mentor, with the relation with other mentees, and provide a tool for identifying career goal through critical reflection. Instead, for mentors, because the program involved also mentors, the mentors be a mirror for mentee and reflect on the gender dimension, practices and processes in research, because in their position they have the possibility to introduce some new idea and process inside our institution. In the next slide, I show you shortly our methodology. As I told you, in the first edition, we involved only women, but after the first edition, we decided to involve also men, because, as I told you, we believe that the problem is to transform the institution, and so it's necessary to involve men, and both women and men. It is a one-to-one mentoring, but we give the possibility to the mentee to contact, exchange experience with all the other mentors according to their expertise. And the matching mentor-mentee was carried out by us, by the coordination group, on the basis of the entrance questionnaire that mentee and mentors did. Another choice was that in order to avoid biases and possible interferences, we decided to create a transdisciplinary mentoring, crossing different physical disciplines. So we try to not create a match between mentee and mentors that are in the same context, labor, or communities. Because the mentee needs to be free to talk of everything, of their her feeling, and so on. The duration was 1 year, but now is starting the third edition, and we decided to postpone, and the program lasts 18 months. And the program provided 6 meetings. The meetings are face-to-face. Yes, we organize 3 plenary meetings, the kick-off meetings, the midterm monitoring, and the overall program evaluation. And these meetings are in presence. But the problem is also not to stress a lot our mentees. So the meetings mentee-mentor, the one-to-one, in which we ask a bi-monthly frequency, they could also take the meeting online, because it's not easy, because INFN is scattered all Italy. We are several structures in Italy, so we decided not to stress a lot our mentees. So 3 main plenary session, and the other meetings, it depends. A lot of mentee and mentors decided to have a face-to-face meeting also for the one-to-one meeting. And so we provided, please, the next one, we provide also some tools. Now we don't have time to explain all the tools, but we give some useful tools to reflect and carry on the program during all the duration of the program. And I give you some, in the second edition, please. Basically, in the second edition, we face 2 challenges. The first one, as I told you, we opened the program to men. But the other was the coronavirus pandemic, because we decided to continue the program, but we have only the virtual meeting, and we registered the fact that in comparison with the first edition, there is something worse, but I think that it's useful to continue our program. In the second program, the goals were the same. The difference is that mentees were free to apply. Instead, mentors was selected by us, because we understood that this role is very sensitive and not all are eligible for it. So we decided to select the mentors. And in the second edition, we took care in communication better the expected objectives and the roles, and we explain better the tools we provide, and so we take more attention about these things, and the format remain unchanged. Please. The next one. Okay, and in March 2022, we finally have the last meeting in Naples, finally in presence. And in these meetings, we had 2 days together and reflect on 3 topics: the gender integration research and teaching programs, the gender balance in senior position, recruitment and career progression, and the work-life balance. And it's very, very insightful, because we produce a participative document with concrete ideas and solutions that we presented in February at our top management. As I told you, I believe it's really necessary that top management was involved in this kind of activities. And the last one, on 7 November, about the achievement, it's difficult to evaluate the result, because the program needs a long time to be measured, but we have some mentors that during this period have become the directors of INF and structure, bringing with them the importance of listening, a new focus on diversity, and taking care to create more inclusive environment. And moreover, many mentees have also achieved a significant career advancement, for instance, reached permanent position or receive role of responsibilities. And I think that for all, the awareness of gender issue, the importance of networks, and the proper time management increased. And we receive also, our program has received the next one. Okay, our program has received also some first acknowledgement, one from the European Institute for Gender Equality that recognized that the mentoring as a relevant practice for Italy. We operate inside the Observatory of University of Naples, Federico II, because one of the coordination member group is Ilenia Picardi, that create a tailored program with us. And we presented the result of our program also at ICEP, that is one of the world's most important nuclear physics conferences during a parallel side. And now we have a publication about this. And the last slide on we launched just a few days ago the third edition. We have a mix in-person and online event, and this occasion we have the opportunity to return the evaluation of the last edition program and promote the alumni network. I insist very much to this network because I think that create a relationship within our mentor-mentees could be an occasion to reinforce their position. And so, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Sabina. It was really very, very interesting and inspiring what you have reached so far with the INFN and with all of your colleagues, and I mean, really, really interesting.
Thank
you. We have now for Q&A. If anyone have a question, please just unmute your microphone and you can go ahead. I see that there's some comment in the chat. Lydia says, thank you, Sabrina, very interesting. Vivian asked, are this meeting face-to-face?
Yes, I reply.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know that it was a direct question. And Vivian's also said, I mean, appreciation to your work and to your teamwork. So as I mentioned before in some meeting we had the days before in the previous day, if we may collect some question and we can just send you maybe an email in the next days. If there's like late question, we can just reconvene in a more complex document, so you have like plenty of time to answer and give also extra point of view to maybe connect with other people. So thank you. If there's no question for now, but please keep. I see a question from. Okay, thank you again. I'll invite everyone to write in the chat if they have question, or to just write me an email or write to the Catalysi email an email with every doubts or information you want to ask, and so that we can send it to Sabina or to Magdalena, of course, after her speech, and to have it a more complete answer. So now let's go forward to our second speakers of the day. So Magdalena Zadkowska, from University of Gdańsk in Poland. Welcome to this webinar. So the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Benedetta, for inviting me. And really, I'm grateful you, Sabina, because the introduction, like overall introduction, I'm working for years also with Italian researchers. So I'm not only based in Eastern Europe, which is also the other thing I will mention later, that for us women from here, important as another bias. I would like to share my experience. I think it's almost 20 years I'm dealing with gendering institutions, also with entrepreneurs. So not only the academia, but lately in academia and within many Horizon projects, Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020 projects. So I decided, as I knew from Bernadetta, what will be the first speaker saying, I decided also to give a very special insight. As a scientist, I am a sociologist, and I mainly work with qualitative methods. It means that I go really in depth. So I wanted also to show you what my experience and what my data coming from in-depth interview, focus group, and also being the practitioner as I work as a coach, tutor, and academic teacher within the field of gender in academia too. So let me start the presentation. And the presentation is prepared by me. I strongly cooperate, as you see, and the photo with Professor Natasza Kosakowska-Berezecka. So we are like the team to make the institutional change, which should be seen on the photo. And if you could let me know if the photo is on. Bernadetta, is it okay?
Yes, everything okay. We hear you loud and clear, and the presentation is clearly visible.
Thank you very much. So I would like to start from the syndrome, imposter syndrome, probably very well known among you, but I would like to show you how deeply it is not only hidden but present in academic career, and it goes with I think many things that Sabina was mentioning before, but I will just give the other perspective. So I think you also asked the same question: who is in true and ideal academic right now, as we have even more images than we used to have in the past. So of course, as you have shown, it's still like a little bit, as you said, a little bit crazy white older guy, as we can see here. And but actually, if we ask young people who the scientist is, I remember the study done in late 60s when children and young people asked in United States to draw the scientist with this neutral form in English. Only 1% were women on the images. The study repeated in 2016 showed 34% of women. So there is the change. It's not that everything is really not changing, but as you see, it's only 1/3. And of course, you would like to have like maybe 2 examples, etc. So of course, we can discuss where it comes from. But I think for today, it's maybe even more important to discuss what to do with it. So how to make like for example, female and especially female with children also be present at this image and at this mental correlation. So because we have such an image, one of the most felt emotion among researchers, not only women, but especially, is that it's not me, that all my life I have to prove that I'm also the scholar, the scientist. So till we go into the image that it's really okay for me to just say, no, I want to go to the lab. This is really when I want to be, no matter if I'm a mother or your fiancé. This is like the work, the life that I'm also devoted to and like to do it, but of course with keeping the boundaries. It's like that I always feel this is not me. And I will refer in a minute in one of the most important female role models in science, not only in Poland, Marie Curie Skłodowska, who is Polish, but appeared in many manuals along Europe. And I found a very nice image. I know it's in Polish, but it's also, I think you see what is meant, but I will also tell you, is that the critique towards women, and also Marie Curie Skłodowska, like, why are you not smiling? Maybe you should do your hair. Like, maybe you should tell us who designed your wardrobe. Maybe you can show us our shoes. These are what journalists are saying here on this photo. So that the image of women as not being like this first recall scientist is also about judging everything she does. And this is strongly influencing the imposter syndrome. But also we find while doing the research among early and later career researchers that it's of course not only gender, it's also age, it's also class background. And here we see the image of a young PhD student doing publishing first paper with having like no such stories in his family. So students, we observe it very strongly also in Poland for years, because we had different history in science because of communist era in Poland. But anyway, that still we see differences among young scholars who are coming from scholar families, like where they were eating dinner with like professor, both the grandma and mother. But also those who are the first to have BA or MA in their families. And it also is reinforcing imposter syndrome, and it's reinforcing it in double when you are a woman, and when you are like from Central Eastern Europe woman, it's also like that. So with definition, it's one of psychological phenomenon. When I'm lecturing about it, what is important that it's so common. So when you just try to imagine, do I feel it? And you think about what your body tells you about feeling shy, like having problems with like going high heels, etc. Because you just are looking for your image, and then you receive this, you do not belong here, with like questions or things or feedbacks people are giving you. But it is also in our heads that we think, I do not belong here. And then every mistake we do, every grant that is rejected is just confirming, yes, I do not belong here. So it's really, really strong. And we took it really seriously when projecting and designing different things in our institutions and in other institutions that I'm advising, that it's really about going not only, as Barbara Riesman says, and Sabina, you said these 3 levels, so the individual, interaction, and like macro level, but this imposter syndrome should be known in all the levels and all like people that are in connection. And if we feel in a way that maybe in one part of our life, even if I haven't felt it before, but it's something that I can feel, then knowing the resources and knowing the solutions could be helpful. So this is like the image that I like the most about the imposter syndrome, because this giving up, this is what we see on the leaking pipeline. That in a moment I might say, okay, I have to care about myself. I do not to feel that I'm like lousy, that I cannot manage, that I'm doing wrong, that my paper was rejected. So I can say stop. And this is for institutions very important information, that we are losing talented people we recruited before. So this is also our way to talking to like top management, rectors, etc., that you lose really talented people and you invested in those people before. So what institution can really lose such investment? So from the field, I very often go to different social forums written and managed by young scholars. I do also agree that PhD schools are should be really target of what we are doing, but of course we cannot work only with PhD schools, because then it will be even maybe more hurting for them, knowing how the word is created and then not having alliance in the different part of academia. But here is a story from one of the student group saying like, yes, how it's really difficult to deal with the what I'm feeling in academia. So maybe I will just quickly read it. I'm a graduate, but I think I have a good reason to pause here. I just missed another deadline this term. I'm in my senior year and I don't think I have learned proper research. It was mostly improvisation. I'm extremely messy. I open a million tabs to read, which always result in overwhelming me, and read about half. I don't know how to manage my time when there is literally no individual task in a research, only a huge amount of reading. So this always results in procrastination and a lot of stress before the deadline, so I produce less than I aimed for and with only a couple of resources. How can I get better at this? How do postgraduates and professors do it? At this point, I also feel like a fraud, having passively made me way through college, doing rapid research and cramming for exams last minute. And despite getting above average grades, I haven't retained anything I learned the past few years. Surely, I've learned a lot, but nothing substantial, nothing coherent, and as structural as the kind of intellect I see and admire in my professors, and definitely nothing worthy of an English major. I was considering postgraduate studies in a different major, but having to deal with the burden of research and suffering through dry texts is making me feel that maybe academia isn't the place for me. And this is original post with many, many comments. Yes, I do also feel the same. So it goes in every level of education. And I think there is not that much done about it, as everyone who survived it would say, yes, you are academics, you should survive it. This is just how the world is organized. So we do know from doing different studies that the only way to have equality and to take profit from inclusion is that people can be unique in the institution. But the second condition is about belonging. So I cannot feel that I do not belong here. I have to feel I belong to this group. And then, yes, we have inclusion, then we have safety, quality of life, innovation, high performance, proactivity. There are hundreds of good studies and research published. You can see some down in the slide that it works, but only then. Teams that are gender, age, and ethnically diverse make better decisions up to 87% of the time. So we know it works, but it's not only like tokenism doing some indicators. It's about all the atmosphere, it's about all the academia, it's about all the society. So I come back to Marie Curie phenomenon, which we studied doing the both qualitative and quantitative study in Poland among women that were awarded a L'Oréal Prize for Women in Science, very prestigious prize in Europe. And they were all saying, yes, in Poland maybe it's easier because from the very childhood we have this image that our colleagues in other countries do not have that. And it was Polish woman in Sorbonne getting 2 Nobel Prizes, etc. Even her daughter got one. But on the other hand, it's really high to think I will be like her. Like majority of us won't get 2 Nobels, let's say it, and the men also won't have it. So it is like, in a way, having like 2 ends of the stick, this phenomenon. So I agree, Sabine, with you. We do need, and I agree with some person that was, I do not remember your name, but you talk about in Germany about the projects for entrepreneurs, that we need role models, but not only these role models in manuals, we also need role models that are from very childhood appearing. Like, for example, we know some cartoons, we know that, yes, there are gender bias, but we also do meet people. This is the former rector of our university, the president of the Research Council for Poland, very strongly empowering and empowering women in his lab. But if we didn't have examples like Ewa Wojkowska, who was supposed to be here this day also with me, that women that first use feminatives, that are really going far away from queen bee pattern, that recognize how the world of young people now is different, what are their problems, how the generations has the stereotypes of the generation nowadays, and what are the needs of this new generation, and that we need them in science. Without this role models very closely to us, we cannot go farther. So what we did, and you will find some people I already mentioned on different photo, because we create really not only female group, it's only here, that was working at the University of Gdańsk. So first, what was for us very important, but of course we go with the pattern that we have to know facts and numbers, was to diagnose the university and identify not only pay gaps, but also like some fields that maybe women do something well. For example, we in University of Gdańsk, we receive pretty much projects as PIs. And we are thinking, why is that? Because it gives you money and gives you autonomy. And we thought that maybe in some moment men were scared of getting grants in a way that they do not know how to do it. And those who knew it from other like EU projects were first, and there were women among. So we interpreted like that. But what we also had, and we are following the history of it, in University of Gdańsk, we are the first four place in the world to have the percentage of first female authors in publication. So this is also that this Matilda effect doesn't work that much in our region that we see, but imposter syndrome, yes. And I think it's also related to the culture. So we are more shy, we are more from collectivistic culture, and it also like reinforces imposter syndrome. So we were very focusing on how to fight it and how to deal with it, meaning that, okay, you can have it, but we will help you just to make it disappear. So we diagnosed the university, we prepared the gender equality plan. It will be now prolonged for next 2 years. And of course, we take every action that was making like good effects and giving nice feedback to be repeated. So we tried to then change institutional culture. Now we are doing the second diagnosis after these 2 years, how the culture was changed. We used the GEM method that is popular, and it can be used by all universities. In other international projects, we are using it. It was invented by Jagiellonian University from Poland. So we do evaluation, and then we always present the results to the top management, but also make them be known among employees from the institution. Then we do also work hard on role models. So for example, we make women be visible. We organize discussion exhibitions about women present in university history. So role models again. Then if we have some change in management, and actually we had one last 2 years, now we have 2 vice rectors that are women. It was never before like that. In Poland, I think there are only 2 or 3 universities with top rector being a woman, but having like the parity in the vice rector's team, it's also like kind of success. So not only we support it, but we really disseminate it, and we make it like to be our as the institutional gain. So just to make it last, that is not only the like by incident, but just to be kind of the example for next rectors. So role models via quotas. Then what we do, and it was really it wasn't like really Oscar movie. But what we did, we recorded, and here you see Professor Węgrzyn's for the second time. So we saw that there is that progression in academic career really is threatening people. So on each level of progression, meaning becoming PhD, becoming having habilitation like tenure, and then becoming the full professor, we recorded the interview with the leader of the National Science Council in Poland. Am I okay now with what I do, and where should I improve, and what are the is gender really matter in the process, and just to have the direct contact and direct question answers. And we see that these movies are seen by thousands of people in Poland. So for just scholar community is a lot. So the instructions and the feedbacks that yes, it's okay, you can now apply, it's also really important, because with imposter syndrome you will then think I can never apply, feeling it's not my place just to apply for the next position or for postdoc, etc. You always would feel it's not for me. So we need also guidelines. And we worked with Natasha Kosakowska, we worked hardly about guidelines. The guidelines in many projects are kind of put in linear process, so or separately. So you work on guiding research, gendering research, gendering publishing, gendering teaching. We do think it's like not that good approach, and we would like to more see it in like a different approach, knowing that it should be all, when you do research, you take publications, when you publish, you have to have research, and somebody have to you have to work with somebody to know it, to be taught, and then to teach the others. So what we did, and it was a really nice cooperation. You mentioned Londa Schibinger, Sabina. So we organized really nice webinars with Isabel Goldman, Shirin Haydari, Londa Schibinger, just to have like this great person on the board. And we now we are publishing with Elsevier the gendering scientific publications guidelines and also checklists. Just okay, you have to do it, but we will help you. It's not like the other exaggerated demand on you to be like a scholar who has more and more challenges, but also just you have to know that it will work and it will be like for your good in a university community. So gendering science. And then briefly, but we do also have really nice mentoring programs. So we can then maybe talk more with Sabine, what are differences, what are similarities. It's we only finished the first edition, but now the second edition is going on and we have many applicants to do it. We work with 6 meetings for, I think, similarly as you, for each participant. What I find to be different is that we decided to, in a way, give many opportunities of the mentoring teams, teams that you can work on, but also, so first, we plan it as individual, on-site or online, depending on needs, and to make it before PhD, before habilitation, that we do have it in Poland, and before professorship. So as the themes were going also on. And we have that last year we had 20 trainees in training. We hope for more maybe this year, because we started with 12, and maybe next semester there will be another 6 or 12. So we have the Center for Teaching Excellence and Tutoring that work with us. So it's like inner institutional program, which I think is good. It's not outsourcing. So they do know the institution, but on the other hand, we work hardly not to like make one colleague work with the other. So just people shouldn't know themselves very well. And they propose, the mentors, you see 5 mentors here, 2 men, 3 women. And beside gender, of course, that is seen, they do also propose which is the area of work. So is it more for planning publications and grants, or is more for teaching, or is more for work-life balance, or is more for like burnout? So you will see in the profile of the mentor that choosing the mentor is that you in a way choose the path you would like to go. Then we organized the contest. I include gender in research, and it's both for MA and PhD thesis. And we try really have also the balance in winners. On the left, you see 2 first winners of the prize, and it's pretty nice financial support, around 800 euros for MA, I think. And we have it from the Mind the Jab grants that I'm representing here, but we will have it for sure, like lasting initiative, because rector agreed to always give money for that. So here you have like many outcomes of that, and we included also in teaching perspective. So awards matter, money matter. It's not only by receiving money from grants, but it also awarding everyone that give time and put contribution to giving lectures, to doing extra work outside academia. Because if you do something for free, it's in a way showing, okay, you belong to academia because you do it for free. If they do not pay you, it's really reinforcing imposter syndrome. So also we should remember that. So what else we did? We did the family room, and it turned out to be fascinating, good outcomes. So people were saying, nobody will come. There are so many mothers and fathers coming to just, it is in International Center for Cancer Vaccine Science. So like when the mothers or fathers are doing the experiment and they have to wait 1 hour, 2 hours for the result, they can leave the child there, and it's really used. So wonderful story that happened. But it's also about welcoming people in general, like welcoming children, let them know that mother is doing a really great job and having really nice ambience. It's also about welcoming, like you see our rector here on 2 slides. So it was him who was opening it, but also the director of the center. So it's just also about presence. It's also about rectors that are not only saying hello, but I have only 10 minutes and I have to go. It's about showing by like those in top positions that initiatives are important. So it was all organized, coming to the end, it was all organized by RRI Research, Responsible Research Innovation Commission at UG. And here you see that we also try to involve men to it. Men are allies, we cannot work without them. And they are involved in many actions we do, and we do projects together and plan the gender equality plan together, which is really nice. And of course, for the actions that I mentioned, we mainly base them in Mind the Jabs project. But what is also important, that it's not only for time being of the project, but it's also make the thing last for next years, not only be like, one-time story. So this is what we do, and I hope I inspired you to some actions. I will be more than happy to answer the questions and maybe cooperate later in the future also as expert or member of your project. So thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Magdalena. It was really interesting from hearing from you. It was also, interesting seeing like the other side of the fact, not only on science, but also from I would say a human point of view, but a psychologist point of view, a sociologist point of view. So not only data of science and the thing that Sabina talked about, but it was really inspiring and interesting. So as I see that nobody has any last minute question or last minute contribution, I thank you all, and fill in the questionnaire for the feedback form, and we'll I hope to see you too in next webinars of Catalysi, and maybe we can like collaborate together in many other themes and project. So thank you very much. Bye.